one piece of career advice you wish someone had given you when you were starting out?
I never finished university. I didn't get my degree, even though I tried 3 times to do it. I've had 6 years at university and no degrees, which is a bit of a waste of time. But I let that hold me back. I was always like, I can't go for jobs that require that level of understanding, learning, like the exams, the certificates that you get with it. So I was like, well, maybe I'm just going to have to do like office work on the phones. Maybe I'm going to have to just work in shops. And that was kind of a limiting belief of mine for a long time. And I think once in my career, I moved into working a company called BT, and admittedly that was on the phones, but I could see that I could bring other skills that I'd learned into things. And then I didn't let that stop me. I was able to kind of push my career on, and I wasn't held back by the fact that, yes, I didn't have a degree, but look at all this experience I've had, like the work that I do, the teams that I've worked with, the teams that I've run, the teams that I've built, and that just goes a huge way. So don't ever let that stuff hold you back, right? It's about what you can do, what you have done, and what you'll do in the future. So yeah, don't think you need all these certifications. Don't let stuff like that hold you back. You can do anything.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, because there's an awful lot of people that go into a degree and they'll either change and swap to something different and then realize their passion after finishing that it was for the first point, or they just ultimately won't finish their degree for circumstances, however it might look like. It doesn't limit you other than yourself, really, does it? There's always that opportunity there for you might have to go into a different kind of role or a different route into it. Do you think working for a big company like BT provided you that opportunity?
It did. I needed the space to work out what I was good at and how I could apply that to the workplace. I wasn't getting that space because I was trying to get on that academic treadmill almost. I thought that was the right thing to do. And, I was always good at things like maths and sciences and things like that. So my degrees were initially like physics with astrophysics, right? Failed out after 2 years. I did maths for a year. And then I was like, I can't do that again. So then I did international relations, which is a bit of a pivot, right? Because I found that super interesting. But then, I just couldn't afford to do it for any longer. So I kind of had that space. So I needed the time to just do a job and understand things, where I was like, well, like data, right? Maths, physics, it's all about data, the stuff that you've got. And then I could see where I could get that commonality. And then once I had that, and once I learned how to do some things that are really practical, you could build on it and build on it and build on it. So just because I didn't know some archaic mathematical theorem from third year maths didn't stop me becoming a leader in the data and analytics and AI space at all. Actually, I think having had that experience, spending how long now? 10, 11 years, I think it was at BT, growing through the business gave me a lot more tools in order to do the jobs that I have now than what my A-level said or what I learned first year uni. I think the only thing I really learned first year uni was how to drink properly. So
everyone learns how to do it.
Yeah.
And you've obviously landed in, pretty much from my understanding, I know Peak are a really intelligent AI and ML company. So the maths and physics background's obviously very relevant with your data understanding, and the pivot into more international relations and marketing has combined into almost like a perfect role for you from the outside looking in, I suppose.
Yeah, I think what I've learned over time is that not that you don't have, but be flexible in how you approach your career as well. So I grew up in BT. I would say I grew up in BT, but I was still in my 20s when I did it. Doing data roles, running teams, that kind of thing. I was a bit tired working at BT, so I took a voluntary redundancy package. Not the thing to do when your daughter's 3 months old, by the way. That was a bit hairy. But then I managed to move into this role that was data science. So I was a data scientist for a number of years now. Not the biggest pivot, but a big change. I went from being a manager of managers in a data organization to being an individual contributor, then learning something new, then grew up in data science, became a lead data scientist, running a team, did that for 4 years. But then the opportunity at Peak came along, pivoted into product management, and then pivoted again within product management into product marketing. So it's each step has grown on the other thing, and I've been flexible enough to go, well, you can try something new, data role into data science, a data science role into a product management of a data science platform, right? So you can build on those skills. So everything that you learn is there in your back pocket, and you can apply it to that role. So don't think I need to be a data scientist, then a data science manager, then a data science leader, and then king of data science. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be that. You can be flexible enough to take what you've learned and go sideways or diagonally. And that's fine. And like, I've flipped between people management, individual contributor as well. There's great things in both. But I've loved that, learning both and being flexible in who I am and how I approach my career. I think I've got a lot of joy out of all the things that I've done. So, and if I just like sat on that business track and ended up as director of whatever in the same role that I had been for 15 years, I'd probably be a lot more boring.
Yeah, I agree. And it seems a fairly consistent theme, what you've mentioned there, across leaders that I've spoke to, of just because you're within this one area of a business or like you specialize in something, it absolutely doesn't mean that you can't pivot into something else and transition, like learn your skills and utilize them in other ways. And it keeps things interesting for you, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think, yeah, absolutely. And you get this a lot with, when you look at a job description, right? And you go, crap, like there's like, I've got like 2 out of 10 things. But actually, you need to be really, really clever about how you look at your career. And I wouldn't be surprised if you were really thought quite hard about what you do, that you do aspects of these roles when you look really hard at it. But also, don't see job descriptions as a shopping list if you need to have everything, right? Like, every single job description I've seen has been a unicorn role with like 12 things that you need 50 years experience to have everything. Like, hit the main things, but prove that you're willing to learn, willing to grow as well, and willing to be flexible. And that goes a real long way. I think, don't be afraid to have some of those punts, right? Like, think, oh God, could I work in marketing? I've never done it before. Well, like, no, there's people that everyone starts somewhere. Like, and you know, there's not one person that literally is born as a marketeer. So, you know, everyone starts from the same point. So give it a go. And if you're willing and you're open and you're smart and curious enough to learn, then you'll go a long way. And people will hear that when they talk to you as well.
Can you share a pivotal moment in your career journey that made a significant impact?
It's really, really, really small, right? But we're 18 years past this moment, and I still bring it up. And I said to the person just last year actually about this. When I was working at BT, I was on the phone, right? We were answering calls from engineers who were like, can you do a test? And we test the line and go, cool, that's fine, and then go away. So it was a lot of like working in customer service center, but internally. And I had a senior manager at the time, and whilst I'm sure was incredibly irritating and loud and noisy, being in my early 20s working there, she must have said or thought that there was something that I could learn or do better. And so there was like, I think there was some work doing where we had like spreadsheets or something to deal with, and it was like working through a list of work. And this person taught me 2 things. She taught me how to use VLOOKUPs, and she taught me how to use pivot tables. Now, literally 2 things, but it's the very, like, reflected on it now 18 years later, is the very core of so much around data work, which is, you know, combining data across 2 different tables and then aggregations of things. But learning that skill, I took that and ran with it, and just became annoying, right? Because once you start looking at data, you find things and interesting things. Then before you know it, you're that data person. Then before you know it, like, you're moving into those roles. But that was that moment, right? I was probably a bit aimless in what I was doing because I tried university 3 times. I got nowhere. I was like, oh, what am I going to do with my life? But just having that little snippet of the skill and then seeing it for the possibilities that it was, and someone taking the time to go, Chris, stop gobbing off for a minute, and we've got this work, and I think this will be really interesting for you to learn, was the catalyst for, you know, from being someone on the phones to being in an AI company, start, you know, going through funding rounds and taking trips out to Vegas to conferences and presenting at Peaks conferences on stage, right? That wouldn't have happened without someone sat there going, Chris, this is how you do pivot tables and VLOOKUPs.
Yeah. So embracing change at the very beginning, or every opportunity, I suppose, isn't it?
Well,
and understanding it.
It just opened my eyes. And I think it was just such a small intervention, which was shut up and listen, right? And here is something you can do that I think just went a really long way. And whilst there was part of me that had to run with it and had to see the possibility that came with it, at the same time, if it hadn't happened, God knows,
who knows what?
Like, who knows what? Like, would I be sat here in the cellar? Probably not. Would I have even met my wife? and just have 2 kids? Probably not. Like, what would I be doing? And I don't want to think about that because I love my life now. So, and it's just that little moment back in 2005 that was just supercharged. It was the rocket ship to the person you see before you today.
How do you approach challenges and setbacks in your professional life, and what's your go-to strategy for overcoming them?
Oh, this sounds cheesy, and I work in the startup. This is going to sound it, but every setback is an opportunity, which sounds awful, right? But what I mean by that is there's something to learn, right? When something hasn't worked, this is like taking the scientific method, right? Then what do you learn? Why didn't it work? What happened? What can we learn? How can we change things? Or was it just circumstantial? Was it environmental? I think being open to being critical about how things have happened means that you can learn. But you need to do one thing, which is don't hold on to that issue, right? You have to just let it flush through you. I used to get really aggro. You do a project for weeks, and then someone goes, actually, we're not doing that, just bin your work off. You'd be like fuming. You'd be like, oh my God, I put my heart into this. Actually, it's work, right? These things happen, changes happen for reasons that you're going to be aware of and reasons that you're not. So don't hold on to that and go, okay, cool, what did I learn? That project went really well. It wasn't needed though. So I can take those learnings in how to deliver a project and apply it to something else. Or if it's an absolute horror show, you go, cool, this is what went wrong. This is what we're not going to do next time. And then apply that learning. Likewise, I think when someone's getting agitated in meetings or on calls or in emails as well, often it's because they care. So, if I'm presenting something and someone's really going to town on me, they're the first person I'll go to and say, what's the problem here? Because they care so much that they're going to have insight. Now, they might get personal, but I'm a grown up, right? I'm going to just let go. But yeah, it's you learn from every experience. So don't hold on to things that have gone before. You don't want that luggage. You just learn from it and go, cool, what's next? Cool, what's next? I think that positive attitude to things goes a real long way. So when you started a job, you're early in your career, you don't necessarily know how to do things, and something goes wrong, you're not going to get sacked, right? Unless it's, okay, you might.
Within reason.
Might do. Within reason, but nothing terrible is going to happen, but you have to prove you can learn from it and grow, and you're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. And it's fine to make mistakes. And I think as long as you learn from it, then no one can knock you. If you don't learn from it and you keep making the same mistakes, then you're going to have problems. And I think that's where a lot of people get kind of really tense. Oh, I can't make that mistake. You just have to let it go.